Well, it's not really near the border, come to think of it. Anyway, yeah, I had him going to South Carolina there for a while because from talking to him, that's kind of what he led me to believe. Of course, he went to Georgia. So that could be a second one I could go back and fix, but I'll just stick with Tommy Frazier for now because that was the one I was most adamant about back in 19. When was that? About 1990 something that he came through. But yeah, so I'm adopting these rules that everybody else uses. If I'm wrong, I'll just change my prediction so that I'm right. So I've changed it now to
I
Tommy
love it.
Frazier.
I love it. I think that's the best way to go. But what do you think about my idea of the one-day national holiday for the transfer portal?
Oh, 100%. All in favor. Seriously. I mean, if
No
you
school. You don't have to worry about anything but deciding whether or not you're going to come back.
if you
You've
know
got
where
one
you're
day to make that decision.
if you know you're leaving, you're leaving. You've already had your exit visit with the coaches, and you know I don't know what this means about. And I'm not picking on South Carolina. I mean, they're just the ones that have had a bunch of transfers. I mean, was their recruiting that bad over two classes that so many players couldn't make it in their system? Because let's face it, a lot of these guys are being kicked to the curb. They're being told there's no place here for you because you haven't developed, you're not good enough, and so we're just going to go out to the transfer portal, John, and find replacements. I mean, that's what's happening, not just at South Carolina, but all across the country. So does that mean these guys are making mistakes with their recruiting? Are they buying too much into the star rankings? Because let's face it, star rankings don't make the player. Talent and heart and determination and desire ultimately make the player. So those who live by the recruiting rankings and star opinions lose in that same category. But I mean, I'd have to go back and look and see. But this is a pretty unusually large number of people hitting the transfer portal, John, from one school like South Carolina to this point. Now, don't get me wrong. I know like Colorado had what, 50 last year or something because Sanders basically told everybody to leave. Um, that was a unique situation.
Yeah, that was a coaching change too.
Exactly, exactly. But he came in and he told everybody leave. I'm going to bring in a whole new roster. Um, so South Carolina again, when you have players leave, is that an admission that you were poor in evaluating and recruiting them, poor in coaching them, or they were bad? Maybe they didn't put in. I'm going to put on the players too. Maybe they didn't buy in. Maybe they didn't put in the effort, et cetera, et cetera, and it was time for them to go. I guess every case is up for discussion. Every case has an individual story. But the Gamecocks are hitting the transfer portal, John, hard with a lot of offers, and they got some guys coming in for visits. So we'll see how that plays out as they try to rebuild the roster. In the meantime,
Phil,
I'll
real
just
real quick, if I may, just curious if you have if this is more of your knowledge, because I think you're probably mostly right. But do you have info from within USC Athletics that a number of these players are being given their papers to leave, like kick to the curb, or is this just more what you're kind of assuming is happening, or just curious where that info may have come from?
yes.
Got it.
Now to
The
the
blanket statement, yes.
college football playoff deal. I mean, here's my thoughts. Here's my thoughts. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to get into whether or not we're better off, worse off with this system or not. I mean, that's been debated forever and ever since it was created in 2014 after the previous system, after the previous system. You ask me, I think we should go back to New Year's Day, all the top teams playing in the New Year's Day bowls, and we judge them from that because basically you're doing the same thing now. Yeah, there's a 14 playoff, but to get to that 14 playoff, it's a subjective decision of a panel of people who look at the games, look at the data, and they make a human choice based on what they happen to think happens to be one of the best four teams and the next best four team and so on. It's a human decision. It's not objective, it is subjective. And until the colleges get to a point where they've got an NFL playoff system where you actually win your way in without debate and without at large selections that require human input of a subjective opinion, you're going to have these arguments. Even when you go to the 12 teams, it's going to be coming. deeper down the line, number 13, number 14, who's left out. But all that being said, in my opinion, I think Georgia is one of the best four teams in the country. They lost one game by 3 points in the SEC championship game and somehow managed to drop from number one to number six, not even to number five, to number six. That is pretty radical punishment for a two-time defending champion who had a 29-game winning streak and lost by 3 points and had a controversial call go against them in the game. That was critical. So if you ask me, they should be in and Texas should be out. I think it should be Michigan, Washington, Georgia, and Alabama. Now, that's just my opinion. And my opinion is no different than yours as far as it being an opinion and Pat's opinion. We all have opinions on who we think the four are, which is the problem with the system because the four who are in it based on opinions. Now, when we used to pick it, New Year's Day, all the games played, and then the AP writers and the UPI writers or coaches now, whatever, and they make their decisions. They based it on opinion. They watched the games, they watched the performances. They decided, okay, this team had the best performance, had the best season all the way around. This is who I think is the national champion. So I don't really see a difference in how we're doing it now, except it's just at a different timeline. We're picking off of opinion the four teams to play in a playoff versus just picking a champion after all the New Year's Day bowl games where you had the best teams in the country all playing at the same time. So those are my four. I think Georgia should be there. Florida State, yeah, I hate it for you, but Jordan Travis is such a huge, huge chunk of your offense. You can't tell me without him, you're the same team. And especially in today's football world where the quarterback is everything, where the rules are set up for the quarterback, where you can't touch the quarterback because he's so important. You all admit the quarterback is so important. He makes the most money on any given team. I would bet you the quarterback does if he's a terrific quarterback, as Jordan Travis is. So you can't tell me the quarterback is not the heart and soul and engine of your football team. You can point to your defense and you can point to your backup and all that, but you're not the same team. So I felt terrible for him because with a healthy Jordan Travis, absolutely, they deserve to be there or should be there. Not just deserve, but if you want the best four, and that's the whole idea, the whole charge of the committee was to get to the best four. Without their quarterback, they're not one of the best four, in my opinion, Chris.
Oh, wow. Where to begin? I'll start with your comments on Georgia. Georgia got screwed because they play in a conference that has a title game. If they did not have to play in the SEC championship, I would agree with you. They should be in. But they did not win their league. So you eliminate Georgia from the mix. And there used to be a time, and this is not just athletics, this is in our country, where we celebrated excellence. But the one thing we don't do anymore is we do not celebrate excellence. It's almost like a sin that you want to be great at something. It's better off to be mediocre. And all I have to do is look at the South Carolina High School League. Hey, win 2 games. You're in the playoffs because we celebrate mediocrity at the high school level. We do it in Little League. And we're now starting, unfortunately, to do it in college athletics. Regular season in men's basketball has been deteriorated and watered down because we've got way too many teams to make the postseason. So all you really have to do is play well for about a week in March. You get to go play for a national championship. My biggest concern about the 12-team playoff was going to be that it would water down the college football regular season. But I think what we just saw yesterday, and I'll totally disagree with you on Florida State, they proved that the regular season means nothing now in college football. Florida State did everything they were asked to do, regardless. And the committee, to its credit, there is a clause in their bylaws that other relevant factors factor in, and one of them is injuries to key players. But if I'm not mistaken, Ohio State ran through, 3 quarterbacks the year they got in and may have gone on to win the national championship. Florida State was an unbeaten conference champion. The discussion should not have been between they and Alabama or they and Texas. They should have been just like Washington and Michigan. They should have been automatic once they won on Saturday. I'll concede that they're not the same offense without Jordan Travis. You're right. But their defense is exceptional. It is elite, and it was good enough for them to get into the college football playoff. They should have been in. The discussion should have been, as you pointed out, between Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. And then at that point, I think you have to put in Texas. I think this is one of the years where folks nationally who believe there's an SEC bias have plenty of ammunition because Alabama lost to Texas. Florida State went through and won its conference and was undefeated. And if you take Jordan Travis out of the mix and put Florida State in any other league and they go through the same scenario, my guess is they're in the college football playoff. I think they got hurt by being in the ACC. I think they used the Jordan Travis situation against them. They belong in the college football playoff because they are unbeaten. They couldn't have done anything else. They could have done any better than what they did. And what's going to happen now, Georgia will run them off the field in the bowl game because Florida State will have numerous players who won't want to play. They'll not be motivated for that game. And then coming out of that contest, it'll be, see, we told you, Florida State wasn't good enough to be in the playoffs, and that could not be further from the truth. Their team does not want to be playing in the New Year's Six Bowl. They deserve to be in the playoffs, and it goes back to my comment I've made numerous times. Our country used to celebrate excellence, but now all we do is reward mediocrity, and it's a shame, and it mostly occurs in athletics. And I think absolutely the committee got it wrong yesterday. Florida State deserves to be in, and they got screwed.
Pat, what you got? You got thoughts?
I do, and I hear everything both of you guys are saying and agree with a lot of what each of you are saying. But I'll tell you, in a big group chat with a number of friends that we all love football, we all love sports. The moment Texas won their game, I texted to my friends, Florida State's out. It made no difference to me at that point what happened in that game, unless they beat Louisville by 4 scores or more. I thought their fate had already been sealed. The moment Texas won was then when exactly what I think Chris was alluding to came into play. Texas stomped Alabama earlier this year in Tuscaloosa, not in Texas, not at a neutral site, in Tuscaloosa, which just does not happen when Nick Saban is the head coach. They crushed them. So I think if anything there, if you're looking head to head at a Big 12 champ who also just thoroughly beat down Oklahoma State in their championship game, or an Alabama team, I think you'd have to give the edge there to Texas. So then it came down to that the 1 seed being obviously it was going to be Michigan, 2 had to be Washington, 3 would then I would say Texas, 4 would come down to Alabama or Florida State, and I think at that point the SEC bias is always going to come out. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I do think Chris right there, it gave ammunition to all the folks out there that want to make that claim. Because, again, you are not going to have an SEC champ left out of the playoff. That is just simply not going to happen. And I think at that point, you had to look at it, okay, well, there's 8 teams that we might argue are deserving. How do we factor those in? Well, the best way or easiest way at our disposal is to look at the conference championship games as essentially the college football playoff quarterfinals, because you had 8 teams there. I realize it's not a perfect science, but it's the closest metric we could come up with. And at that point, Alabama beat Georgia. It was a neutral site. If anything, you could argue it was more of a Bulldog site because that game's, of course, in Atlanta. But at that point, I hate to say it for Georgia, but then Alabama gets the tiebreaker over them. And if you're going to go between Alabama, who has made a big push into the season, they have a great strength of schedule. They won the SEC. I realize Florida State went 2-0 against the SEC this year, and they beat Florida with a backup quarterback. They beat up on LSU to open the season. I still think I would give the tiebreak there to Alabama if we're looking at the way the team is constructed now. And I think Kirk Herbstreit said it best when he said the same logic would apply if Michigan lost their starting quarterback. They'd be looked at completely differently. If Washington lost Penix Jr., who may win the Heisman, that would completely change the way that we look at Washington. So the same logic could be applied to any of these 4 teams or any of these 8 teams. And even going back to the Clemson days, I'd like Clemson fans out there to be honest with yourselves. If Deshaun Watson got hurt and was out the rest of the year, would those Clemson teams have still made the playoff against what most people thought was a relatively weak ACC, or ACC, as a lot of people used to say then? Would they have, if Trevor Lawrence had gotten hurt and you had just a Chase Bryce behind him? I know Chase Bryce came out and was great, helped win against Syracuse to preserve that national championship season. But do you really think that Clemson would have been selected over some other teams as well? I just think this is one of those years where it's unfortunate it happened in the final year of the 14 playoff, but it was inevitable that at some point in the playoff we'd have a doomsday scenario like this. The moment it was announced to be a 4-team playoff, but there's 5 Power 5 champions, somebody's always going to get left out. It just, fortunately, until now, had never been this exact situation where you potentially would have an undefeated conference champion left out?
So you can tell everybody's got different opinions, and that's okay. I mean, that's what college football really has been built on over all these years, different opinions. Until they come up with an absolute system that takes the human element out of it, you're going to always have these arguments and these opinions. So that is what makes college sports go round and round. We'll get to your phone calls coming up here in just a couple of minutes. 888-898-2525. Those of you on the phones, hang on. Want to hit on a couple of other things here before Bergie leaves us. You've got basketball tonight. I know it's another thriller over at the HTC Center tonight. Who's rolling in?
Well, it is St. Andrews out of Laurinburg, North Carolina, NAIA program, who's 3-6 on the year. Should be a relatively easy night for Coastal, but they have yet to have one of these, including their season opener where you thought, all right, Piedmont should be an easy win, and turned out to be a two-point nail-biter. But interesting to see how Coastal comes off the matchup with Winthrop on Saturday, which was just an amazing ball game. One thing I've said for a long time, Phil, is Winthrop Coastal never disappoints. It may disappoint you as a fan one way or the other, but the game itself never disappoints. And props to Winthrop for grabbing an amazing 28 offensive rebounds in that 90-87 win on Saturday. So the big thing is, how does Coastal respond today, starting to get a little healthy as they get back to playing, twice a week. They've had several ball games in a short period of time. They don't play again until this coming Saturday against Wofford. So this is sort of a game where you get your starters, you hope, play about 25 minutes, get them out, and start getting some of the younger guys in, but we'll see.
Okay. By the way, remember I told everybody, look out for Clemson in the Gator Bowl. I just had a feeling that was going to work out. I knew it took some things over the weekend to happen to give Clemson that opportunity, but I had to believe that the folks at the Gator Bowl, they were going to pull everything they could pull on, every connection they could to get Clemson over North Carolina or anybody else, just knowing that a Clemson team coming off a win over South Carolina, 4 wins this month, they're going to have a little bit of excitement to them, and they'll bring a big crowd. I think Clemson fans will travel real well to Jacksonville on December 27th. And, you go and you take a Louisville, for example, and you plug them in somewhere else because they're not going to take a lot of people. And North Carolina's not going to take a lot of people. So I think that they probably figured, let's take Clemson. We'll get a big crowd in here, match them up with a pretty good SEC team in Kentucky. Not great. And Clemson's a 7-point favorite, but make for an interesting matchup. Our poll question of the week is, how did the committee do, in your opinion? We've had 432 votes today. 47.9% say it's the right four. 36.1% say Florida State should be in, Alabama out. 10.6, Georgia in, Texas out. 5.3, Florida State in, Texas out. All right, Chris, enjoy your ball game, sir.
Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow. We'll be back to take your calls.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. We are clear and cool overnight with a low dipping down to 41. Tomorrow, all kinds of sunshine to go with a high temperature of 64. Now, the sun continues the rest of the week. Will stay dry, cooler temperatures, highs in the upper 50s, lows in the 30s. Next rain, well, it won't happen until maybe Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
This is Ian with AccuClean. With the holiday season and gatherings with friends and family quickly approaching, now is the perfect time to get your carpets, rugs, and upholstery cleaned. AccuClean is a veteran-owned and local carpet cleaning company located in the Midlands for over 20 years. Call AccuClean today at 803-957-1202 to make sure your carpets are refreshed this holiday season. Once again, that's AccuClean at 803-957-1202. We hope to see you soon.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting the Justice Department says a former American diplomat who served as U.S. ambassador to Bolivia has been charged with serving as a covert agent for Cuba's intelligence services since at least 1981. Newly unsealed court papers allege that Manuel Roca engaged in clandestine activity on Cuba's behalf for decades, including meetings with Cuban intelligence operatives. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is labeling a demonstration outside of an Israeli-owned restaurant anti-Semitic after protesters marched against the bombardment of Gaza. The protest on Sunday called for a complete end to the siege and an end to the U.S. complicity with Israel, according to a Facebook post. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 41 points, the Nasdaq dropping 119. More details at srnnews.com.
Hey, I'm State Representative Chris Wooten.
And I'm State Representative Micah Cassidy.
Join us on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. on The Rep.
We'll talk about everything that's happening in the State House and give you an insider's perspective.
All from the General Assembly. So join us at 9 a.m. on The Point, 100.7 FM or 1470 a.m.
Ho, ho, ho. 'Tis the season to shop where Santa always shops. That's at Shooter's Choice, Santa's first stop. Have you been naughty or nice? Shooter's Choice has been awesome with their brand new, huge showroom to make your Christmas shopping a great experience. A massive space of firearms, ammo, and accessories to choose from. Benelli, Sig, Glock, Colt, Henry rifles, Bergara rifles, Franke, Stoger. I mean, come on. You have every major brand to choose from at Shooter's Choice. And to make it a simple job, let the pros at Shooter's Choice help you with Christmas selections. You just can't decide. Well, no problem. Gift cards are the answer. They always make shopping easy. Santa's marking down prices on new items up to Christmas Eve. And along with the daily and weekly specials, well, you will not be disappointed. Fill your Christmas wish list. Save hundreds of dollars. If your sleigh can't make it to Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia, shop online at shooterschoicesc.com and have it shipped down your chimney or at least to your front door. Merry Christmas from Shooter's Choice. Your Christmas shopping spree starts with your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Join us weekday mornings at 7:31 a.m. for Straight to the Point with Pastor Steve Williamson. That's Straight to the Point. Weekday mornings, 7:31 a.m. here on The Point, 100.7 FM.
Hey, y'all, this is Ted from Flight Deck Restaurant. During this holiday season, families and friends like to get together to celebrate Christmas. If you need a space to host your event or your family get-together, Flight Deck Restaurant can help. We can accommodate parties from 10 to 100, everything from setup to cleanup. Now, most importantly, during this wonderful Christmas, we at Flight Deck and our families want to thank our Father in heaven for sending Jesus to be our Lord and Savior. Thanks, y'all, and may God bless you, and may God bless America. Merry Christmas.
How does a car repair shop last in business for over 50 years like Sudeth Automotive? By providing affordable, reliable, and honest auto repair. But if you ask them, they'll tell you it's their loyal customers who come back time and time again to entrust them with their car repair. Well-trained technicians, service packages, and monthly specials. Isn't it time you become a customer? Call or come by at 1410 North Millwood Avenue or make an appointment at SudethAuto.com.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network. For those of you listening to, watching the stream, we're breaking in a new piece of equipment here on Sports Talk, and so eventually you'll see our smiling faces. But for now, until we get everything set up right, we've got the timeout overlay across the screen, but that'll change here shortly. 888-898-2525 is our phone number. We go to Keith in Camden. First with us tonight. We'll take a bunch of phone calls, except for recruiting. It's all phone calls rest of the night. Welcome in, Keith. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Phil.
Hey.
How you doing?
Great, sir. Good to have you.
I know Chris is involved with a basketball game, I think, but just a general comment, and then I'd like you to respond. Naturally, a kid plays a role when he comes into the university as far as his work habits, keeping his grades up, not getting in trouble, etc. But when you look at the responsibility of the coaches number one, you got to be able to develop relationships and recruit. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And then you got to develop that talent, and then you got to implement a scheme that works based on what you have. And let's just be honest. After watching this weekend, watching all the different teams and seeing them, a lot of them 9 wins, 10 wins, outside of one or two coaches, I think that they deservingly, are in the D to C minus category. If you have that many people leaving, it's not totally because they're bad kids or they just don't have good work ethic. It has to be a combination of everything, but I think it's just being able to evaluate talent. And if you go back and look last year, how many offers we made compared to somewhere like Clemson or Georgia, it'll blow your mind. It's just like we're throwing it out there. We hope something sticks. But we got a long way to go. After just watching all the games Saturday, it was, it was pretty frustrating to think, man, we really do have a long way to go. And I understand we're in the SEC and we may never get there, but something's got to change if we hope to improve. I'm just curious of what you think.
Well, that's a lot to unfold. Thank you very much. Great hearing from you. Winning SEC championships takes obviously a lot of talents. It takes good luck. It takes excellent coaching. It takes the right schedule. In some cases, it takes some breaks coming your way. And, how far away is South Carolina from doing that? I mean, sometimes you can catch lightning in a bottle, and it just happens. It just all comes together. Look at this basketball team. Look at the Clemson basketball team. Who saw this? Clemson now number 23 in the AP polls. They break into the poll this week, or is it 24? 23 or 24. South Carolina 7-0, one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country. 2 7-0 teams to meet Wednesday night. I bring this up to say, who'd have thunk it? Now, they got a long way to go. I mean, they're only, about a quarter of the way through the season, of the regular season. So a lot of basketball to be played. Football, same thing can happen. You can have it all come together when you least expect it. From a South Carolina standpoint, this year's team, obviously, the injuries on the offensive line and the constant turnover there, the injury to Juice Wells, his absence, huge. The shorthandedness in the running back room took them a while to find somebody who could become at least respectable at the running back position. So all these things, offensively, they had a lot to overcome, and some of it, brought on by themselves, poor decisions, poor recruiting. Certainly, you can't blame them for losing Lloyd to the transfer portal, John, to go to Southern Cal for whatever reason. I mean, when kids leave, they leave. What can you do? You can try to buy them back, but if they have their eyes set on something that they think is bigger, what can you do? So, in defensively, they were, for much of the season, not as good as they had been. They had trouble getting off the field. They had trouble stopping the run. I do think they got better the last part of the season. Even in the loss to Clemson, I thought the defense held in there pretty well. It made a respectable showing, held the Tigers without an offensive touchdown. So the kicking game was not as good as it was last year in terms of becoming game-turning factors. Remember last year in the return game, in the fake game, all that, they turned games their way. They won games. Not this year, either because of poor timing, other teams waiting for it, poor execution, whatever. So, yeah, South Carolina, just based on what you might have seen over the weekend, you look at the cream of the crop and you look at Alabama and Georgia and you go, my goodness, they're a long way off. At least you won't have to deal with Georgia next season, but you will have to deal with Alabama. So, pick your poison there if you're the Gamecocks. But it's a long, hard grind in the SEC. I think everybody knows that. There are teams who've been in the SEC more than twice as long as the Gamecocks, and they've never tasted the wine of victory, of a championship. Or if they have, maybe it's just been once in their 70 some odd years in the SEC. So it's a top heavy league. It always has been. You think it's going to change? Texas and Oklahoma coming in. Do you think they're just going to come in and start winning SEC championships all of a sudden? Maybe they will, because they're established powerhouse programs. But if you believe what the SEC believes it is, this is no longer a walk in the park for them, leaving what they've had in the Big 12 and whatever other leagues they've been in over the years to step into the almighty SEC, if the SEC is all that almighty moving forward. So I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you should be like, I wouldn't sweat it. I'd hope for 8 or 9 wins about every other year. If my coach can deliver me 8 or 9 wins and get me to a good bowl game, and then maybe, on that rare occasion like 2010 where it all comes together with an older team that's talented and well coached, it all comes together, you get a chance to play for an SEC championship, well, there you go. But turning around South Carolina's football program overnight just ain't going to happen. Not just going through the portal, not just recruiting high school kids. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you've had the best quarterback, the best passing quarterback you've ever had just come through your program. And matching that will be extremely difficult. You had one of the best receivers you've ever had in a single season just go through your program. Matching that is going to be difficult to do.
And Phil, you mentioned Oklahoma and Texas. Just a quick point on them. Both teams will be losing their starting quarterbacks, or I think we're all under the impression that Quinn Ewers will be entering the draft from Texas, but he might return. But if he does decide to leave, both of those programs will be entering the SEC with a question mark at quarterback. Because earlier today, Dylan Gabriel entered his name into the portal from Oklahoma. I would assume that means he's probably going to Mississippi State, maybe to rejoin his now former offensive coordinator, new head coach at Mississippi State. And then Texas, I get it. They have Arch Manning behind them. Both teams have an abundance of quote-unquote 5-star quarterbacks coming in, but none of those guys have any experience. Arch Manning threw 5 passes this entire season. I would assume that means they're going to redshirt him from this year. But again, that's a big question mark for them. So I would think you hit the nail on the head. They're not going to come in and just instantly win anything, I wouldn't think.
But I hate to be, sound like that guy, but I mean, according to the recruiting networks, experience, not an issue. This Arch Manning was like ready to go to the NFL in the minds of some coming out of high school. He was ready to go. So experience or lack of experience, he's supposed to be the guy at Texas moving forward. And we'll see. We'll see if that indeed turns out to be the case. All right. Now, thank you for the phone call. Let's go to 888-898-2525. James in Sumter. Welcome into Sports Talk. Good to have you with us. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good, but I can tell you I'm irate. I respect you guys a lot. I listen to this show a lot. I don't call a lot. But I can tell you this, guys. I am sick and tired of the SEC and what happened here. Now, this is not just the SEC, but the SEC has gotten with ESPN. And for people who don't want to believe it, look, there's a reason Texas got in. The national championship game is in Houston, Texas, okay? Michigan, they're not so great. Michigan ain't so good. They've been cheating like hell the whole time. They're not so great. But you know why they're getting in? Because they're a large TV draw. This is about ESPN versus Fox. The SEC is ESPN's bell cow, okay? And we all know Disney has been in a lot of financial trouble. What they did to Florida State is a travesty to the sport. And if I'm a Clemson fan tonight, I'm worried because they just told you, Clemson, you don't matter. Now, you're going to take a blue blood like Florida State, 13-0, and throw them under the bus like that. Now, hey, everybody's here old enough to remember. You guys are a little bit older than me, but I'm across 50. I remember back in 1990, 91, everybody said the Buffalo Bills were going to kill the New York Giants. You know what Bill Parcells did? He said, we're going to milk the clock. We're going to play defense like hell. We're going to knock Jim Kelly around, and we're going to run the football. Now, why can't Florida State do that? Okay? Now, in my opinion, it should have been Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas. And you guys just said something you don't understand. You don't realize the bias you're even speaking. It is not blasphemy against the Lord Jesus Christ if a SEC team don't make the playoffs. Alabama barely beat Auburn, who was terrible this year. I watched Alabama play against South Florida. They were terrible at that time with their backup in Milroe. They were terrible, but they just had time to improve. So who's to say Tate Rodmaker? Okay, and he's not that bad. He played last year some. Who's to say Florida State cannot buckle down the hatches, run the football, because they got some guys that's going to the NFL that can run the football. Who's to say they can't run the football, play defense like hell, and make a few throws to that 6'7" dude and the other guy, Keon Coleman, he's going to be a first-round pick. Who's to say that they can't make a game out of this? But know what this is about? This is about they're trying to get two SEC teams in there because Texas coming to the SEC soon. They are trying to get two teams in there because ESPN desperately needs the SEC. They need the SEC fan base, and guys, it's wrong. We are watching WWE entertainment. Because if you guys didn't know, ESPN, they hired years ago, years ago, hired a bunch of people from Vince McMahon over at WWE. Why do you think Stephen A. Smith and all these guys are on TV talking trash like wrestling managers? Because they went there and they hired those people. They said, well, how is this $1 billion operation? Everybody knows it's fake, but it's still $1 billion entity. I'm just saying, it just hurt for the sport. And you know what? What they told Florida State, Clemson, Miami, all of these teams, you mean nothing. And in my opinion, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and Miami, they should go to the Big Ten, bring the Big Ten down south, and punish ESPN and the SEC for what they've done. I'll just hang up and listen.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, James. Love the passion, the insight, the thought, and the part about ESPN, the SEC being in bed together on practically everything. I could not agree with more. I've made that argument before myself. I mean,
think we all agree.
Unsavory relationship when it comes to these kind of decisions. Does the SEC always get the benefit of the doubt because they are the major partner with ESPN, and ESPN owns the playoffs and basically owns college football? Yeah, I know you got Fox in there now too, trying to become a bigger player, but it's been ESPN, and the talking heads on ESPN 24 hours a day are always playing up the SEC. And yeah, I hear what you're saying with that. And if you want to play conspiracy theorist on all this, go right ahead. I think it's worthwhile to think that Greg Sankey made a phone call or two to ensure that somebody from the SEC was going to get in. That's why I said last week, the winner of the SEC championship game is going to be in the playoff. Now, Georgia would have been an easy one because they were undefeated if they beat Alabama. The stretch in some minds would have been Alabama, but my feeling was the SEC was not going to be not represented. Is that a double negative? Was not going to be not represented. And I actually thought that if Alabama won, that Georgia would get in too. So that was one area where I think they probably settled on, okay, just at least give us Alabama. If you're not going to take Georgia, at least give us Alabama. Yeah, I think the power play was certainly in vogue there, always has been and always will, as long as you got that kind of money involved in the relationship. And it is the driving force behind that relationship. The SEC is. So as far as Florida State, I feel for you. I mean, I really do. And I hear you. And I want to believe you. I want to believe you. I want to be that type of person that says football is more than just a one-man game, because that's what I've been preached to for 60-something years. It's more. It's all this. It's all that. But you know as well as I do, the game has become so much quarterback-centric. And just look at good football teams who lose. And Jordan Travis is not just a starting quarterback. He's an exceptional starting quarterback. Okay, this isn't just a guy who was steering the wheel. He was the engine behind it. He did everything offensively. Yeah, you got Coleman, you got the big receiver, you got a nice running game. It all spun off of Jordan Travis. The backup is the backup for a reason. So you're the committee and you're thinking, who are the best four teams? Who are the healthiest four teams? Who's going to bring all their weapons to this gunfight? I hate to use that. That's a bad analogy. Who's going to bring all their ponies to this horse race? And they saw that Florida State was going to be short. They were going to be short at quarterback. And I'm sorry. I can't disagree with that. As much as I think Florida State had a great year, and when Jordan Travis was there, look, I had him in before he got hurt. I maybe even had him in talking about him this past week. But getting past not having that quarterback, not just a starting quarterback, but that quarterback, I think it was hard to get past that. Got to hit the break. Be back in a moment.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at scattle.org. Beef. It's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff Program.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. That's the sound of a big hit on you and your car or truck. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years, helping people who get injured in car wrecks and truck wrecks. If you have serious injuries, call Jim Corbett, 803-765-2968, or email me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. That's CORBETT. I don't get paid unless I recover for you. Jim Corbett Attorney, for your best recovery from a big hit, 803-765-2968, or jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
The lottery is not about getting rich. It's about helping people, and it always has been. The lottery is what helped raise the Great Wall of China, build the roads of Rome, and today in South Carolina, it's what generates millions of dollars each year for scholarships like the SC Hope, Life, and Palmetto Fellows. The South Carolina Education Lottery is investing in you. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou to learn more.
Touchstone Energy cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
George Bryant here with Tsunami Bar Sports, and wow, Tsunami Robbie, there is now an amazing technology that you can use when you train receiving large game without having to endure pain. Please explain.
George, that is the magic combination. I have three simple words to define that entire concept. Stimulation, not annihilation. Regardless of your training goals, there is a level of stimulation that is optimal for your desired gains. Tsunami Bar's flexible bar technology meets these demands because the user determines the level of stimulation with the amount of speed and force they impart into the bar or training device.
Hey, this is Phil Kornbluth. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BBB5. Don't wait. Order today.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at scfbins.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 803-749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
All right, coming up on the top of the hour, we will continue with your phone calls, and we've got a deliciously juicy recruiting report coming up. Stay tuned for that. Let's go to Hank in Columbia for our next phone call tonight here on Sports Talk. Hank, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing fine. You're gonna act like I ambushed you, but I am, since you put me up against the break. First of all, on Cashin, Chris Berge, the argument he made in regards to Ohio State, it doesn't work because Ohio State lost their first quarterback before their championship game, and they were talking about leaving Ohio State out. But in the championship game, remember, Ohio State beat the team like 49-0, so it didn't look any different.
Yeah.
So that's how they.
That was Carnell Jones, wasn't it? Who came in and went crazy?
It wasn't even Cardell. It was the second string guy.
Yeah.
The second string guy came in. The second string guy got hurt in the Alabama game in the semifinal, and then that's when Cardell Jones came in for the championship game.
And they beat the heck out of a really good Wisconsin team in that Pac-10
killed the
Big Ten
team.
championship. Yep.
And before then, they were talking about them just like Florida State, that they weren't going to let them. They were going to let them in because they lost to Barrett. But the fact that they looked that way, that solidified them. That's the difference. That was the difference. Alabama had the hardest strength schedule. It's not about the SEC, because if you're going to say it's about the SEC, then why didn't the SEC lose all these playoffs they stuck them in? They won about 90% of them. Clemson's the only one that's really made a dent in their winning record in that. So I wanted to say that. Also, this thing about the transfer portal, Georgia's had 48 guys transfer since 2019. Last year they had 16. The year before they had 15. They had 14. That's what this just happens nowadays.
You're right.
So
So
it's not like it's just South Carolina.
No.
And Ohio State they're pushing their starting quarterback that went 12-1 into the portal because they told him he's not good enough. He wasn't good enough to beat Michigan.
Yep. I mean, no school is immune from it. That's for sure. Okay. Thanks, Hank. Be back.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters. The United States is urging Israeli and Hamas negotiators to restart ceasefire talks. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said efforts continue to get back to the bargaining table now that Israel has expanded its military offensive against Hamas.
We're still talking about trying to find a way forward on hostages. We're talking about sustaining and expanding the humanitarian assistance, making it into Gaza.
Sullivan said talks broke down when Hamas refused to release the remaining women hostages. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina is coming to the defense of former President Trump after a blistering attack from former GOP Representative Liz Cheney. Bob Agnew reports.
Cheney told CBS last week she was worried about the prospect of Donald Trump winning a second term. She warned the U.S. was, in her words, sleepwalking into dictatorship. Senator Graham responded on CNN's State of the Union that the country faces far more peril from a second Biden term. Quote, our border is broken. The only person who is really going to fix a broken border is Donald Trump. When he was president, none of this stuff was going on in Ukraine. Hamas and all these other terrorist groups were afraid of Trump. Despite facing 4 criminal indictments, the former president remains the leading GOP presidential candidate by a wide margin. Bob Agnew reporting.
The Justice Department says a former American diplomat who served as U.S. ambassador to Bolivia has been charged with serving as a covert agent for Cuba's intelligence services since at least 1981. Newly unsealed court papers allege that Manuel Roca engaged in clandestine activity on Cuba's behalf for decades, including by meeting with Cuban intelligence operatives. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 41 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Relief factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com. Starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. Relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
Stop overpaying for wireless. There is a better way. Pure Talk's the average family about $1,000 a year on the most dependable 5G network in the U.S. You can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of high-speed data for just $30 a month. If you're ready to cut your wireless bill in half, dial pound 250 and say keyword spend less, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Again, dial pound 250 and say spend less, and make the switch to Pure Talk today.
A deadly fire in New York is blamed on an electric bicycle battery.
The fire started Sunday night in a 10th floor apartment in the Bronx. One person who was rushed to the hospital with critical injuries died. 2 others suffered life-threatening injuries, and 4 others were slightly hurt. Fire marshals blame the fire on an e-bike's lithium-ion battery. New York City has seen hundreds of fires linked to the batteries that power electric bikes and scooters. City officials have blamed off-market batteries and chargers for many of the fires. They've lobbied the federal government to strengthen regulations governing the sale of e-bikes and batteries. I'm Rita Foley.
Officials say the city of Detroit is on track to record its fewest yearly homicides in nearly 6 decades. Through November 30th, Detroit had recorded 228 homicides, an 18% decrease over the same period last year. News and analysis at townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. We are clear and cool overnight with a low dipping down to 41. Tomorrow, all kinds of sunshine to go with a high temperature of 64. Now, the sun continues the rest of the week. Will stay dry, cooler temperatures, highs in the upper 50s, lows in the 30s. Next rain, well, it won't happen until maybe Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
As a kid, you dreamed of being a firefighter one day. Now, the opportunity is yours. Answer the sound of sirens. Live your dream. Become a part of a team, a family. Visit scvolunteerfire.org to find out more.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
We are back in Sports Talk on this Monday night. So good to have you with us. Phil Kornblut, Pat Daniel here in Columbia. Chris Bergen off to do basketball tonight for Coastal Carolina. This is a special week. Of course, it's the week of the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, the North-South game in Myrtle Beach on Saturday. We'll have that game for you here on the Sports Talk Media Network. Airtime's noon on Saturday. Kickoff at 12:30. Of course, the game itself is big enough, but at halftime, we have the announcement of Mr. Football in South Carolina. And so rest of the week, we'll be broadcasting from the beach. Looking forward to being down there for that and everything that goes on around what is one of the best all-star games in the country every year, and getting better and better with more ideas, fresh ideas, a new look at things. Looking forward to seeing where they take that game in the future. So make plans to be with us on Saturday for that. We go back to your phone calls. We'll do recruiting at the bottom of the hour, be a lengthy recruiting report. So stay tuned for that. I would plan my evening meal around it, or if you're going to take a shower, between now and then, plan around that. Maybe you're going for a walk, plan around that. Just giving you a heads up. We go to Gamecock Larry over in Swansea. Gamecock Larry, hope you had a good weekend. You're doing well tonight. Good to have you with us, sir.
No, Phil, didn't have too good of a weekend. I'm in the hospital. I had pneumonia and all, but I'm beginning to feel better. Hope to get to go home tomorrow. They've been running tests all day. But James in Sumter. This is Gamecock Larry I guess, in the VA. Let me tell you something. Any team with a 63% strength of schedule average does not deserve to be in the 14 playoff. Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Louisville, and I can't name the rest of them ACC teams. 63% strength of schedule. Who has Florida State played really this year and beat besides Clemson? They want to beat North Carolina, but you do not compare to the SEC strength of schedule. I believe, Alabama should have lost to Auburn. Alabama could have lost to that. Well, should have lost to Texas. But that's okay. When it comes down to brass tacks, Alabama is still a better team than Florida State. And you can believe it or not, but I'm going to tell you something right else. And then I'm going to get off here and Phil, Pat, if you can, let me listen to you on the radio a little bit, because I know James and all of them bored by what I got to say. The ACC schedule and the SEC schedule is 100% different. And that's about, I love all y'all. Thank you for keeping me in your prayers. Everything's going to be all right. Alabama will win the NCAA championship this year. Georgia will roll over Florida State, and Florida State will be like James and Sumter. We don't want to play. This player ain't going to play because we was dipped in the 14 playoff. That's all I got to say. Love all y'all. We'll talk about the Tigers and the Gamecocks in about 3 or 4 days. Oh, yeah, let me say one other thing. The teams with the most NIL money will be in the top 12-team playoffs for the next 3 or 4 years, and South Carolina and Florida State will be just a I don't know you know what I mean. Go Gamecocks.
All right.
Love all y'all.
Larry, take care.
Yes, sir.
Listen to your doctors and nurses, man, and hopefully you get home soon. Get home tomorrow. Look forward to hearing from you. Just looking up the strength of schedule, which is a component that people like to talk about. So I'm looking at Warren Nolan's strength of schedule ranking, and his is based on the opponent's record. Michigan State had number 1. Alabama had number 2. Their opponents were 97 and 49. South Carolina had the number 3 strength of schedule. 83 and 50 were the Gamecock opponents this season. Texas, number 11, with 90 and 55, the combined record of their opponents. You got to go down a bit to find Florida State. Florida State is ranked 83rd. Their opponents a combined 77 and 66. For what it's worth, if you're going to talk about stuff like that. Georgia, 28, their opponents are 86 and 57. So just another element to consider when you're talking about who should be in and who should be out. Back to the phones.
And Phil, one more quick point before we go back there. I was going to make earlier, but we ran out of time. Just regarding this, there's so many different angles you can look at this from, and anybody out there could pick whatever angle best suits their argument. I get that. But I like to think of it as well. If you're a coach and you're thinking about who your team is going to play and who you would rather play, as in who the more difficult opponent is on paper, on the field, the tougher team to scheme against, both offensively and defensively, and you have to factor in the starting quarterback into that equation, at least in my opinion. And if you are an opposing coach of any of the other top 5, top team, or in this scenario, top 4 coaches, which one puts more fear into your heart right now as the team is currently constructed? Alabama or Florida State?
Oh, yeah. No question.
I don't think anybody out there, being honest, would say Florida State. I just don't.
No. Yeah, exactly right. A couple of quick things and back to your phone calls. 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. USC receiver Xavier Legette, linebacker Debo Williams, selected to the AP All-SEC football team. Legette, second team honors at receiver and all-purpose, and Williams, second team linebacker. Heisman finalist, I got my vote in time, by the way, as always. What power I have to be able to determine the winner of the best quarterback in the country every year, the Heisman Trophy. LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels, Oregon quarterback Bo Nix, Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr., and Ohio State receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. 4 finalists for the Heisman. Basketball. Clemson, as I mentioned, Clemson is in the top 25 with their 7-0 start. The Tigers are 24. Tigers are 24. San Diego State's 25. South Carolina received votes. Arizona, your new number 1, followed by Kansas, Houston, Purdue, UConn, Baylor, Gonzaga, Marquette, North Carolina, Creighton. Women's poll, USC, again, the unanimous number 1. And why shouldn't they be with the way they are going at it? And let's see if there's anything else. I think we're good for now, so let's continue with your phone calls. Well, we will in a second. 888-898-2525. Want to mention that we'll be down at the beach, and you can be down at the beach. We want you to come down to the beach for the All-Star game Saturday. Yeah, I know. Looks like the computer's gone bonkers on us. You want my hammer? You got your own hammer, because either one will work.
Oh, I got one. Sorry, Kevin. It's about to be ugly in here when you get here in the morning, buddy.
We'll sweep up the glass, but we'll leave the frame. Oh, there you go. Pop back up. Crazy, crazy system. Anyway, heading to the beach. You can head to the beach, and you can never leave the beach because you can buy property from Jimmy Smith at James Smith Real Estate. How about that? Go to the beach and never come back. I can't think of anything better. 843-237-4246. Your perfect beach getaway or home away is waiting for you down at Litchfield and Pawleys and Garden City and Surfside and Myrtle Beach and all those great spots. So give Jimmy a call. You'll talk to Jimmy or you'll talk to a great member of the staff, and they will find what you're looking for to rent or buy for however long you want it. Again, that phone number is 843-237-4246, online at PawleysVacationRentals.com. All right, now we go back to your phone calls. And next in line here on Sports Talk is going to be, well, his family call him Triple T. But his friends, oh, I'm sorry. I skipped one. Hang on, Triple T. You're next in line. Bobby in Newberry. Sorry, skipped right over you in line. Bobby, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you in Newberry?
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Chris Bergen that Florida State got screwed, but I'm going to take it a higher level. And I fault the NCAA for letting Michigan in for their cheating scandal and showing people that it doesn't make any difference how you get there. It's okay. That's my concern. There was plenty of room there if they'd have just stood up and said, "Hey, just because y'all did that don't mean you get there." And the monkey wrench that's going to be thrown in there back in the old days is that when Florida State beats Georgia and you have an undefeated ACC champion that's left out and, they got to explain it. But, hey, I'll let you go. That's all I got to say.
They could go buy their own national championship like NC State. They can go claim to be national champions. Alan Smothers still thinks NC State won the College Baseball World Series a couple of years ago. He refuses to accept otherwise.
And Central Florida a few years before that in football.
That's right.
They even had a parade, if I remember correctly.
That's great stuff. Yeah, I hear you.
Do you think, Phil, that might incentivize players for Florida State to play in the bowl game? If Mike Norvell could use that as motivation, like, hey, guys, I know right now you're down. I know you feel defeated. I know you want to just kick off the rest of the season and just go relax with your family, eat bonbons at home around Christmas. But if you'll stick with me and stay motivated, we could go out there, beat Georgia, who also made a case for wanting to be in the playoff, the two-time defending champs. And now we could at least make an argument as co-natty champs.
Yeah. See, Bobby, you and I suffer from the same disease. You and I would like to believe that people that run college sports, presidents, commissioners, ADs, had some scruples and a spine and some backbone. But they don't, because it's TV executives who run college sports, period. And they could give a rat's rear end about violations, rules breaking, whatever the case may be. You're right. It is interesting. In fact, it's laughable that a team whose head coach was suspended for half the season for rules violations is showered as the number one team in the tournament, while a team that went undefeated, though they lost their quarterback, I'll give you that, is left out, But that's college sports, man. It's just a messed up deal. And I guess, maybe it's always been messed up. Maybe it was messed up before my time and your time. Maybe it's always been messed up, but just messed up in a different way. But, of course, with so much publicity today and so much information flow, we know more about it now. Maybe we just didn't know back in the old days. I'm talking about old days, about stuff that was going on. But today, everything is, somewhat transparent. You see everything. It is laughable that you have a situation like Michigan that did cheat, that had a head coach that got suspended twice for a total of 6 games. And, they're welcomed right in. Let's go back to the phones.
Phil, real quick, I might be a little too far out here with this, but to your point right there, just to piggyback on it, a lot of sports, professional and collegiate, used to really stick by morals and principles and lay the hammer. You want to go back far enough, look at Pete Rose. he was excommunicated from baseball for life. I know this is now going back way back when, over 100 years at this point, but the Chicago Black Sox scandal. Back in the day, what I mean is you had, and those are just the two examples that popped in the top of my head first, but you used to have a hard line drawn in the sand. If you cross this line, you are done. You are out. You will not come back. You will not be welcome, period. And now it seems like, even look through the whole steroid era in Major League Baseball, sure, a number of those guys have now not been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, probably the biggest one out there. But look how many players did slide through the cracks, and were still able to, at the very least, maybe they didn't get the Hall of Fame, but it didn't affect their career. They still kept playing. I mean, the biggest suspension I can think of was Alex Rodriguez, but he still was allowed to come back and finish out his time and make every single dollar from your beloved Yankees. Whereas today, you see the Houston Astros, who got caught red-handed stealing. They didn't lose their World Series.
Nope.
They still got it.
Yep.
The coach is now a head coach. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he's now the head coach. Thank you, for Detroit. So no harm, no foul there. Then you had, again, I'm struggling with names today. Sorry. Alex Cora, who was a big part of it, and then went to the Red Sox. He ultimately served a little bit of a suspension, but it's all just suspensions now. It's slap on the wrists, so it really doesn't send a very strong message, in my opinion.
Yeah, Michigan could always come back and say, okay, look, we won all our games when our head coach was suspended, so we're still a good team with or without him. We should still be in the playoff. But you could come back and say, well, you should be penalized for all the cheating that you did in your coaching staff with the sign stealing stuff.
Yeah, and if instead of just suspending him for those games, they had said, all right, well, those games are now going to count as losses. Like we see the Rick Pitino Louisville team lost their national championship banner. Those wins all removed from his record. We've seen countless basketball coaches in football lose wins. Les Miles recently at Kansas and LSU lose wins off his record. Well, what if the NCAA had done that this year? And they're like, all right, well, each of those games, those are now losses. Now, instead of being 12-0 in the regular season, you're 6-6.
And what is, which is also funny, is that Harbaugh, he didn't coach those games, but he's getting credit for the wins. They go on his record as wins, even though he wasn't on the sideline. Okay, now to Triple T. That's what his family calls him. I call him ABM because he's always the angry black man. ABM, welcome in. How are you?
Good afternoon, Phil. First of all, I want to say to all the folks out there, everybody cheats. And I don't condone it, but it's what it is, Okay, but I'm going back to this with the Florida State situation. The only person to blame is the ACC. In 2021, the SEC came up with a plan for a 12-team playoff starting in 2023. The ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten signed form an alliance and voted against it. They voted against it. If they would have went along with this, Florida State would have been playing Liberty in a home game Saturday. So all y'all folks who blaming the committee, no, it's not the committee. And I'm going to say something to you, to all y'all. It's about the Benjamin. If it comes down to Alabama or Texas and Florida State, guess who they're going with? Alabama or Texas. They bring more money than Florida State. In basketball, if it comes down to Duke, North Carolina, or Kentucky, or some other team, those teams going to get in. It's about the Benjamin, folks. Wake up and smell the coffee. And y'all bitching and moaning about Florida State got shafted. No. Phillips, who was the SEC commissioner, shafted Florida State. I'm saying this. He voted against that deal because he said the SEC going to get more teams. My grandmama said a half of anything is better than all or nothing. And that's what they got. Nothing. So I see y'all folks down the road, like Triple T always do his homework. Y'all just go off the cuff and be jumping up and saying Florida State got shortchanged. No. The SEC, the ACC shortchanged the Florida State. If they would have voted for that deal in 2021, they would have had a 12-team this year. Take care. Triple T, man. Go Tigers. I'm saying this.
Very good. Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, but they didn't, and we don't. And so in the here and now, in real time, you still have to deal with the committee and the way things were done this year. So I can see why Florida State people would be ticked off. You can say, yeah, if you not had this alliance and you would have allowed the 12-team playoff to begin this year, you wouldn't have the problem. Well, that's all well and good. I get that. You'd have a lot of other teams who'd be very happy being in that playoff who got left out of this one. But in the real-time world, here and now, you deal with what you've got to deal with. And that was the 4-team playoff and the decision made by the committee. And I can understand why the Florida State people feel like they were ripped off because maybe the reputation of the ACC, losing their quarterback. I think obviously the losing of the quarterback is the major thing. But as somebody has pointed out earlier, Ohio State got through with an injured quarterback. I think maybe in the past, somebody pointed out how Alabama changed quarterbacks during their season. They went from, or was even during the playoffs, they went from Jalen Hurts to Tagovailoa. Was that change took place?
Well, that happened in the national championship game at halftime
yeah.
against Georgia in Atlanta. I remember they benched Jalen Hurts. It was either at halftime or sometime around halftime, and coming out in the third quarter, I believe was how it worked.
But didn't Tagovailoa also save them in the SEC championship game that year? As I recall, didn't he have a heroic moment there? All right, back to the phone.
That was when Hurts got injured, though, as opposed to just benched. And I believe he was just benched. It was just a straight up quarterback change in the Natty.
All right, back to the phone calls. Want to get in as many as we can here. We got recruiting coming up, so stay tuned. And it is David in Orangeburg with us next. David, welcome in. How are you?
Real quick, previous caller talked about pro wrestling. It's predetermined. It's not fake. And the bad guy mantra is win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. But as far as Florida State's concerned, Florida State could not beat either one of the four that was mentioned. They could not beat Georgia, and I don't think they could beat Ohio State. So I understand that they've won the ACC and they're undefeated, but the committee was supposed to pick the four best teams. If I had my brothers, Michigan wouldn't be in there, but if Michigan wasn't in there, Florida State still shouldn't have went. Appreciate the work. Enjoy your show.
Thank you. Thank you. Ultimately, when this whole 4-team deal was created, the number one criteria that the committee was charged with, or the number one goal of the committee, pick the four best teams, period. That's why it's subjective. That's why you go around the room and they put in their votes and they decide, okay, I believe this is the number one and this one's the number two. It comes down, of course, they decide. The way it works is they put in their votes for the top three, and then they have another round to decide on the fourth. And it's all, it's all opinion. It's all opinion. Nothing has changed in all the years of picking a champion when you think about it. Hardly anything has changed in all the years. When we first went to was it the BCS era where we had all the computer inputs?
Yeah, that was based on metrics and analytics and was not as subjective, right?
But it still was. It still had the human vote. The polls, the polls were included as part of it. That's about as close as you've come to taking the human element out of it, but not totally. We'll be back. Recruiting coming up.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here is tonight's forecast. We are clear and cool overnight with a low dipping down to 41. Tomorrow, all kinds of sunshine to go with a high temperature of 64. Now, the sun continues the rest of the week. Will stay dry, cooler temperatures, highs in the upper 50s, lows in the 30s. Next rain, well, it won't happen until maybe Sunday. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
Hi, I'm Alicia Kaufman Quinton. My daddy, Billy Kaufman, opened Kaufman's Meat Plant at our present location in 1955. My family still works hard every day to ensure fresh quality cuts of beef, pork, and poultry. How about a tasty T-bone, ribeye, or New York strip steak? but to order at Kaufman's Meeting Place. Just look for the signs near the intersection of US 1 and I-20 in Lexington. Call us at 356-0076 to place your order. Kaufman's Meeting Place, when you want the very best your money can buy.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting the Supreme Court is wrestling with a nationwide settlement with OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma that would shield members of the Sackler family who own the company from civil lawsuits over the toll of opioids. The justices on Monday seemed by turns reluctant to break up an exhaustively negotiated agreement, but also leery of somehow rewarding the Sacklers. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum has ended his 2024 Republican presidential bid. Burgum blames the Republican National Committee for arbitrary debate qualifications in dropping his campaign before the fourth presidential debate on Wednesday in Alabama. The second-term governor and wealthy software entrepreneur was little known nationally when he launched his presidential campaign in June. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 41 points. More details at srnnews.com.
I sure like to brag about good local businesses. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning is a great local biz. Josh and his team stress customer service as their top priority. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning came out to my house. I had a toilet that wasn't working right, a garbage disposal that died. They came out right on time, told me everything they were going to do, and explained the price of each repair before even bringing in the tools. I knew exactly what I was getting and exactly what it would cost. Their prices are fair. Their team is courteous and professional. Plus, they did a great job fixing what needed fixing in my home. I am very careful about making any recommendations, and I'm thrilled and confident to suggest you call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning for any plumbing needs. If it's a repair or to replace something, if it's that tankless water heater that you've always wanted to give you that endless hot water and save you some money. They unclog drain and sewer lines and so much more. Online, you'll find them at franklinplumbing.sc.com, or just give Josh and those great folks a phone call, 799-2222. That's 799-2222, and tell them you heard about them from here at The Point.
Hi, I'm Karen Pickard.
And I'm Katie Griner.
Every Tuesday at 8:30 to 9 a.m., we'll be talking about issues that concern seniors and their families.
So join us right here on The Point Radio for the Positive Points on Aging, brought to you by Oakley Village of Lexington.
Have you ever walked in and looked at how beautiful a Lexington Discount Homes manufactured home really is? For more than 35 years, Lexington Discount Homes has helped families find home ownership with phenomenal customer service and a selection that fits your needs and your wallet. They have a huge variety of homes and prices. Come by and visit us at 1847 Augusta Highway or take a virtual tour online at lexingtondiscounthomes.com. That's lexingtondiscounthomes.com.
Hey, honey, do you remember if Dad took his meds this morning?
You know, I'm not sure.
He isn't either. Keeping up with his meds is overwhelming.
You know, True Pharmacy packages medication. They showed me a sample, and it even separates them by date and time of day.
Something like that would be really helpful for Dad and for me.
Even better, it's free, just for being their customer. True Pharmacy, 1628 Charleston Highway and 3217 Devine Street, or TrueRxSC.com.
Game day, game day, game day. Be ready for game day with the monsters of the Mellow Mushroom Gridiron. Get to the line of shroomage. Take the snap and order all your Mellow favorites, like fresh mouth-watering spring water dough pizza baked on the stone, monumental hoagies, hot pretzels, wings, meatballs, fresh crisp salads, and over 100 beers from around the world. Dine in, order online, or call ahead for takeout. Then head to the game or the sofa. The Mellow Mushroom in Vista and on Sunset in Lexington.
Hi, this is Joel Lurie. I'm the host of Health Matters every Monday morning from 9 to 10 right here on 100.7 The Point. Join me as we talk about issues impacting your health and our community. It's Health Matters every Monday at 9 a.m. right here on The Point.
All right, the recruiting report tonight, which is brought to you by Seawells. Daily luncheon buffet at Seawells. You hear us talk about it every night. Well, because we want to remind you to get out and enjoy. Why deny yourself one of life's little pleasures. You know, we have very few little pleasures in life anymore, but Seawell's daily luncheon buffet is certainly one of those. And what does that starting lineup, what does that All American lineup look like tonight?
Tomorrow, Tuesday the 5th, Seawells will bring you bacon wrapped meatloaf, Southern fried chicken, fried fish nuggets. Then Wednesday, carved turkey with cornbread dressing, along with Southern fried chicken and chicken pot pie. And then we'll give you the rest of the week after a couple days here. But don't forget, you can also get all your local farm fresh veggies, salad bar, dessert, and gravy.
Grown right here in the beautiful soil of the state of South Carolina. You won't find better soil anywhere. I will promise you that, because I've judged a lot of soil in my time. And for the very best in the catering world, that is Seawell's as well. Just call them for all your needs. If you got an event that requires catering, they'll come to you or host. 803-771-7385, online at SeawellsCateringSC.com. Well, big weekend for Clemson. Tigers win. Defensive tackle Amir Adams, not sure if it's Amir or Amari, forgot to ask him. 6'6", 280 out of South Florence in the 25 class. Practically all the recruiting coverage of Adams by the website analysts had him going to South Carolina as a strong favorite, with Georgia next in line, but he never stated a favorite outside of naming a top 7 last summer. He never publicly gave a hint. Those 7 were Clemson, USC, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Florida State, and Tennessee. Camped at USC, was at the spring game, was at multiple games, including the Clemson game. Camped at Clemson, was also at a game in Death Valley. Clemson defensive tackles coach Nick Eason handled his recruiting and convinced him to come play for him on the Tigers defensive line, that would be best for him. Adams says he likes Eason. He says the coaches like him, his motor, how physical he is, how well he runs. Finished his junior season Saturday night with that loss in the 4A state championship game to Westside. He had 4 tackles and a tackle for loss. He finished the season with 60 tackles and 4 sacks. He's the first defensive player to commit to Clemson for the 25 class. Meantime, 24 class, you know, the Tigers missed on some of their top offensive lineman targets, so they looked into their own backyard, and Dabo Sweeney offered Daniel offensive lineman Watson Young, 6'3", 280. And Sunday night, Young announced his commitment to the Tigers, flipping from a commitment to Appalachian State, which he made back in the summer. He's a Shrine Bowler, a finalist for Mr. Football. And his other offers included Dartmouth and Coastal, Liberty, Georgia State, UAB, James Madison, Middle Tennessee, Furman, East Tennessee, Citadel. So not that heavily recruited of a player as far as the Power 5 is concerned. You hope you can develop a player like this, and he becomes a contributor. He has a strong Clemson heritage. His father is former Clemson All-American center Kyle Young, currently a senior associate AD there. His uncle is Greer head coach Will Young, who was a standout lineman at Clemson. His grandfather, Ben Watson, lettered for 2 years at Clemson. And his great-grandfather, Ed McClendon, played on Clemson's 1939 Cotton Bowl team. Watson, the younger, himself is a winner, 3-time state champion with Daniel. He's the 18th commitment to the 24 class. Back to 25, Clemson Saturday night. Got receiver Carlton Juju Preston, 5'10", 150. Woodbridge, Virginia. The Tigers offered while he was in for a visit November 18th. The first team all-region receiver also had offers from Virginia, Wake Forest, Pitt, East Carolina, West Virginia, Boston College, Colorado, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, and others. According to stats from Max Preps, in 23 games over the last 2 seasons, Preston caught 87 passes for 1,656 yards and 29 touchdowns. So 5 commitments. No, make that 6 commitments. Make that 6 commitments for Clemson in the 25 class. USC receivers coach Justin Stepp on Friday went by Strom Thurmond High School to check in on receiver Braylon Staley, who's been committed to Tennessee since June. He made that decision well before Stepp and the Gamecocks got around to offering him. He has remained true to the Vols, and despite overtures, he did not attend a USC game this season. Stepp is going to continue to recruit Staley for as long as he is open to doing so. He also stopped in to visit Staley's father, Brian Staley, and the elder Staley told us the visit was a good one. They just sort of sat down and talked and asked some questions, trying to see what's in his son's head. The father, Staley, says he's going to support his son 100%, and he still feels like it's a lock with Tennessee right now for his son, who's not going to be able to visit anywhere before the December 20th signing date because he didn't go anywhere this past weekend. Then this coming weekend, he leaves for the Shrine Bowl. So that'll eat up that weekend and the next weekend. And then they've got exams during the week. So going to be hard to get him in, even if he wanted to visit, unless he just comes in for a quick day visit. So his father believes still committed to Tennessee, and he believes that he's known Stepp. He's known Stepp for a long time. In fact, forgot about this. Brian Staley, of course, played at Mississippi State, and his position coach was Shane Beamer when he was there. So they have a relationship going back a while. So it continues to be Tennessee, though he expects that Stepp will continue to recruit his son to the end. Meantime, former Vanderbilt receiver Jaden McGowan, a Lawrence native, was offered by USC today. He has set an official visit for this weekend. Since announcing his transfer plans, the speedy McGowan has also picked up an offer from Indiana. The 5'8 McGowan started 18 of 24 games in 2 seasons in Nashville. He finished with 80 catches for 836 yards and 3 touchdowns. In 2 games against the Gamecocks, he had 5 catches for 23 yards. USC is among several P5 offers coming in today for Kansas State transfer cornerback Will Lee III, 6'3", 185. He had 42 tackles and a pick this season. USC offered Tennessee Tech transfer defensive back Gerald Kilgore, 6 feet 202. He's the brother of Gamecock safety Jalon Kilgore. Or is that Jalen Kilgore? I think it's Jalen. 37 tackles and 5 pass breakups this season. USC offered Arkansas State transfer linebacker Javante Mackey, 6'2", 230, out of Chicago, but he went to high school in Memphis. This season, 84 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. Also picked up offers from Memphis and Mississippi State. USC offered Purdue transfer defensive end Corday Sidnor, 6'4", 230, a native of Harlem. Played in 24 games over 2 seasons. He totaled 27 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. He's also picked up offers from SMU, Memphis, NC State, Cincinnati, Cal, and Vanderbilt. Southern Miss transfer offensive tackle Jerquan Scott tells us he'll be taking an official to USC December 12th through 14th. He was at Ole Miss this past weekend. He plans to visit Auburn this coming weekend. He'll make his decision from those 3 once the visits are complete. He's out of Mobile, Alabama. USC expected to show interest in Miami transfer running back Don Chaney Jr. Father played for the Gamecocks. They recruited him out of high school. In 25 games with Miami, 852 yards, 6 touchdowns. He has had some injury issues. USC offered Purdue transfer receiver Abdur Rahman Yassin, 6'2", 200. 4 years in West Lafayette, caught 34 passes, 356 yards, no touchdowns. Liberty, Bowling Green, ECU, Mississippi State, Washington State, Michigan State, Vanderbilt, Eastern Michigan, Ball State, and Minnesota have offered. He's out of Southfield, Michigan. USC also offered Michigan State transfer receiver Christian Fitzpatrick, 6'4", 220. This according to Alan True of 24/7 Sports. In 3 seasons with the Spartans, he played in 28 games, caught 22 passes, 272 yards, 1 touchdown. Began his career at Louisville, a native of Southfield, Michigan. USC this afternoon also offered Louisiana Tech transfer wide receiver Cyrus Allen, among the nation's leaders in yards per catch this season. FIU transfer receiver Chris Mitchell, who was getting interest from USC, visited Notre Dame over the weekend. And now they're saying he's the favored to go to Notre Dame at this point after that visit. But we shall see. That, for now, is all we have. Quite a busy weekend. Clemson turning it up a notch. Now they've got their 2 new coaches in place. By the way, I want to mention this. Compensation for Chris Rumpf. Got a copy of his contract here. This coming year, 24-25, he will make $950,000. The next year, $1 million. The year after that, 1.1. And there are other incentives, performance-based incentives, like $10,000 for an ACC championship game appearance, $25,000 for a college football playoff championship. So there's incentives built in there to make even more moolah. Matt Luke will make $975,000 in his first year, then 1.1, then 1.2. So they both got 3-year contracts, and those contracts are among the most lucrative for assistant coaches in the country. Okay, hit the break. We'll finish up with your phone calls. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What do you know? What do you don't know? 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number for you here on Sports Talk. Update basketball as we go to the break. Coastal up on St. Andrews, 52-23. Purdue leads Iowa 45-24. East Carolina defeats Maryland Eastern Shore 63-52. Coming up tonight, Alabama plays Arkansas State, and Furman goes out to Arkansas tonight, catching the Hogs coming off that win over Duke. And we'll be back. The stars do shine brighter at the beach as some of the best senior high school football players in South Carolina will be on display Saturday in the 76th Annual Touchstone Energy Cooperative Bowl. This is Phil Kornblue. Be sure to join us for our broadcast starting at noon from Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium. We'll have it all from kickoff to postgame, plus the announcement of Mr. Football at halftime. That's the Touchstone Energy Cooperative Bowl this Saturday at noon on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Farm Bureau Insurance's agricultural roots and ties to South Carolina farmers have shaped the company's culture and work ethic, providing a unique customer experience. Customers are treated like people, not policies. Now, while other insurance companies may have a one-size-fits-all approach to handling customers, we believe you need to be valued and treated right. Our claims professionals work until the job is done, and our agents still believe in the commitment that comes with a handshake. Call Buddy Bridges in Clinton and Lawrence at 864-923-2174 for all of your auto, home, and life insurance needs.
Football season is upon us, and that means Columbia is welcoming fans from around the corner and across the country. No matter where you're from, Gamecocks love coming together for game day energy that can only be found in South Carolina's capital city. Book hotel rooms, find pre- and post-game activities, and plan your tailgate spread with local favorites from pimento cheese to barbecue at ExperienceColumbiaSC.com. We'll see you soon, and go Gamecocks!
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
We're with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer, let's say I'm out in the woods or I'm on the water and I need to reach a DNR agent. How do I do that?
Operation Game Thief, Phil. It's been around 30 plus years. You can call us at our 24-hour hotline any time of day, 1-800-922-5431. To report wildlife violations or to get help if you're in trouble in the woods or on the water, call us at Operation Game Thief, 1-800-922-5431.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, this is Lisa Hosteller Brown.
Do you know the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? The difference could easily save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in long-term care costs. Visit lawyerlisa.com to schedule a consultation today.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
7511 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, South Carolina.
Honey, you need a trust.
Avoiding excess financial stress from the holidays doesn't take a Christmas miracle. All it takes is a Christmas loan from Founders Federal Credit Union. Our Christmas loan is designed to ease your Yuletide expenses so you can focus on what matters most, spreading joy and love. With our great rates, flexible repayment options, and outstanding service, you'll be ready for whatever the holidays might throw your way. So instead of putting that unexpected sleigh repair on next year's wish list, visit foundersfcu.com/Christmas loan to unwrap your own magic this Christmas. Relax with Founders Federal Credit Union. Terms and conditions apply. Federally insured by NCUA. Membership qualification required.
All right, back we are on Sports Talk. Sports Talk Media Network. Looking forward to the rest of the week. We'll be down at the beach with the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl, and we'll be broadcasting from various spots there, connected with the events surrounding the ball game. Looking forward to that. And, of course, the big day Thursday is when the players, they get $150 to spend on a kid at the Target in Myrtle Beach. Always a great moment and a great event when the players get to go out and share some good times with a youngster, and we'll be there for that as well. We have a few more minutes for some final calls tonight here on Sports Talk. Phone number 888-898-2525. Jamie up in Anderson. Great to have you with us tonight. Welcome in. How are you?
Hey, Phil. How you doing, man?
Man, fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, a couple of things, man. I would love to pick your brain for about 30 minutes. I know we only got a few minutes, but on the recruiting front, first of all, I want to tell you do a great job professionally. I live up here in the upstate and listen to a lot of the upstate stations, but I picked up a little part-time job a couple of months ago and started listening to you, and so I thought I'd chime in. And
well, thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you.
And also, I wanted to comment. I'm a Clemson fan. On the hires today, I think Dabo, he really stepped up his game. I think he proved that everybody called him out, Tyler and Spartanburg, a few weeks ago. But I think Dabo, he took it personal. But I also think and I've had a lot of Carolina fans that are friends with me that tell me, at least you know your Coach cares. And he made two great hires today. The kid Adams that committed. I saw him personally play. My daughter cheers for Westside High School over here in Anderson, and he disrupted our quarterback, which will be a senior next year. And if either one of these coaches feel Beamer or Dabo lets this kid get out of state, they're crazy, man. Mm-hmm. They're crazy.
I've heard good things about him. He
can really play, and that kid for South Florence, he really disrupted him the other day, and they kept him on the run. But he won the game with his legs, and also they had a couple good breaks. But anyway, so on that front, Dabo made some great hires. I'm proud of that and all. But the thing I want to talk to you about is the this playoffs. I really think the playoff committee got it correct because, let's face it, Florida State would have got blowed out by all these teams. And I'm not so sure that they would have beat these teams with their quarterback because I wasn't impressed with them all year long. But, they got screwed. And it's a team game at the end of the year. And I'm going to leave this with this point.
Mm-hmm.
So you remember the COVID year when they screwed up. And I'm thinking how Mike Norvell thinks or whatever. Would this be, and I know this is crazy, Phil, and it's going to ruffle a lot of feathers.
Payback?
Would they be tempted to about 3 days before that bowl game to say, you know what, screw it, we're already done. I've already heard they're going. If they go to any conference, it'll be the Big Ten. I may be wrong. You go ahead and burn your bridges with SEC and ACC and just say, hey, what, we're not going to play.
Yeah. No, I don't think that could happen. I think that would be such an embarrassment for the school and the program, and there's probably some costs involved in all of that. So, I mean, I think that excuse me, you know, I think the reaction of the university president and Norvell publicly on Twitter was. I mean, I understand they were upset, okay, uh, but I thought they were a little over the top, and I would, to just attack everything and everybody related to the process with their statements. Um, I mean, listen, you're in athletics, and you win sometimes, you win graciously, you should lose graciously. Yeah, you feel like you got ripped off here, but if you took a step back and were honest with yourself, well, I guess Norvell and the Florida State people can't do that. But if you don't have a dog in the fight and you look at it objectively, there's just, and it's not like the backup quarterback, and people can say, well, he might play well. Well, you have no proof of that because he really hasn't played very much. So you don't know what you've got. It's when you lose your starting quarterback, but one who is of a Heisman caliber elite status, it hurts your football team. Okay. And it's not the same football team. There's just no argument you can convince me that it is the same football team. They scored 10 points against Louisville the other night. Now, the weather conditions were tough too, but they scored 10 points. Yeah, their defense played great, etc. But they scored 10 points. Put that team on the field against one of the other three teams, and they're probably going to get embarrassed.
It'll look like Michigan, Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want that, if you want to, sacrifice everything to the Wolves for the sake of the money and, being in the Final Four and taking your whipping, okay, so be it. But you're going to get embarrassed. You're better off, really. You're better off. You might catch Georgia napping. Remember the last time Georgia went to a bowl game after not making the playoffs, which was a few years ago. Didn't they just barely escape in the Sugar Bowl against some lower level opponent that they had to play? They barely escaped, or maybe they even lost. Go back and look. Last time the point is these teams that are used to going to the playoffs, when they have to take that step down, they're disinterested in large. It's like going to the NIT for these teams, for these power teams. They're disinterested. So, but thank you very much for the phone call. Great hearing from you. So we can squeeze in one more. We got a little over a minute. Danny in Greenville. Danny, be a hero. Get it done in a minute.
Oh, I will. I just can't understand. Chris Rump is one of the best coaches. Been out there for a long time, and Carolina never did try to get him. I don't understand that. He's a good recruiter and good coach.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was on South Carolina staff, at one time, on Brad Scott's staff.
Yeah, but I mean, he had a chance. He was at Tennessee, and he was at Florida, and he's been to Clemson. I just don't understand.
I don't know if maybe some.
Out there.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe some bridges were burned or something when he left. Then again, he left Clemson the last time around, and some bridges were damaged, maybe not burned. He didn't leave with pats on the back and hugs, I think, but they got past it. Now, I wonder if he's been away from the Vikings, on a personal leave of absence, but nobody said what that's all about. But we'll see if that's ever made public. That'll do it. Hey, thank you for the calls. We'll do it again tomorrow night. Have a great night. Thank you, Pat. See you tomorrow.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQX